Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Double Dragon here. Something that I just changed on one of the two cabinets. Not this one, but the one I'm keeping. The control panel connections. The control panel connectors connect to the cabinet wiring harness with connectors. However, they do not use what is kind of the standard Molex connector, which this is an example of a 9-pin that you'd commonly see in an arcade game. This is what the Taito one uses. These use a smaller sized pin than Molex, so the pins aren't even compatible. And they've got this weird orientation thing here where there's a slot that's the key, so you can't put it in backwards. And then it's got these little wings on the side. So you pinch those together to spread the little wings out, slide the other piece in, let go of the wings, and now it's not coming out unless your little side pieces break. It's trapped in there. So I mean, it works, seems to work okay, but I don't know if this is even a connector that's made anymore, where you would buy one. And if you're gonna do use your cabinet for other games and want to do a different layout, you're going to have to find these to interface with the cabinet wiring unless you change it out to Molex. So from what I understand, most people or most cabinets have been converted to Molex. One of mine, this one here, was already using the Molex connectors. There's a 9-pin connector that handles the player 2 controls, and then there's a 12-pin connector that handles player 1 controls plus start 1 and start button 2. So I just finished today converting the other cab off of the originals onto standard Molex, and I did that because, again, I'm going to play other games in that cabinet and I want to be able to swap control panels. Also, I got extra control panels when I picked these cabs up, and they're all Molex. So I only had the one cab and its control panels that still had the original control panel connector. That control panel also itself was not original. It's got Wiko micro switch joysticks, and I think the games originally came with Leaf. This one has micro switch, the other one has micro switch, but I've got panels with Leaf, so I'm actually not sure what type of joysticks they originally came with. They use the same grommet that the Leaf switch joysticks use, so they feel very similar, but you can hear them clicking, whereas a Leaf switch joystick, you can't hear the click because it's not a micro switch, it's Leaf switches touching each other. So that's something to be aware of if you get one of these games, that they might still have these original connectors. Now, both games still have these connectors down in the bottom. So what you've got is the control panel has one end of one of these connectors, a 9-pin and a 12-pin. That connects to the cabinet wiring. The cabinet wiring goes down into the bottom of the cab. Let me take the phone off of the tripod here. The rest of the cabinet wiring goes into the back of the cab. There you go. To two more of those original connectors. And then those wires go into the wire distribution block section here. Now this cabinet has had somebody, it looks like, has replaced the JAMMA harness, because this one has a JAMMA harness that looks long enough that it should be in the standard one for a game, where it would plug in down at the bottom and some of the wires would go all the way to the top to the control panel, because this is a huge amount of wire that's wrapped around here. It doesn't hurt anything, but it's obviously not original to the cabinet. The other one only has enough wiring to go from the JAMMA harness over here and then plug into the distribution block there. So that's, I think I mentioned that in one of the other videos, but that's shows you what they actually look like. And originally you'd have the same connectors. You'd have these connectors at the control panel, and then you have these connectors down there. So something to be aware of. Now another thing, this game is JAMMA. Double Dragon is a JAMMA game, which specifies 2 joysticks and up to 3 buttons. And Double Dragon uses 2 joysticks and 3 buttons. Okay. However, I got Double Dragon running in this machine, and then when I swapped out and put a Neo Geo board in, I found that this was throwing grenades in Metal Slug. This was jumping, and this was shooting the gun. So it was 1, 2, 3 in Metal Slug instead of 1, 2, 3 that you would expect. So something to be aware of also in Double Dragon is that it is wired for JAMMA. It is strictly speaking a JAMMA board, but for some reason, and here you see it's labeled P1 button A, B, and C. Now this again isn't the original harness, so I don't think the sticker is original. But even if it is, it still correctly says player 1 button A, B, C, and then the other side would be 2-player button A, B, and C, and they're in the right spots. But the Double Dragon PCB, for some reason, has punch, kick, or punch, jump, kick set up from right to left. So the actual Double Dragon PCB, instead of button A, B, C, or 1, 2, 1, instead of A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, the Double Dragon PCB is wired the other direction. It's wired kick, jump, punch, not punch, jump, kick. So I was scratching my head trying to figure out what in the world would make Metal Slug in this JAMMA cab have backwards control buttons, but Double Dragon in this JAMMA cab, the buttons are in the correct order. And so finally, I did some, I'm just scratching my head and looking at the wiring, and I'm like, wait a minute, just let me look at the Double Dragon manual. And yes, if you look at the Double Dragon manual, the pinout for the edge connector on the Double Dragon board says kick, jump, punch instead of punch, jump, kick. So if you get one of these and you want to play Double Dragon and other JAMMA games, you're going to have to deal with that. So there's a few options. You can either pop, I don't know. The option that I would do if I was going to keep a Double Dragon PCB to play, which I probably won't, is the control panel has, like I said, there's a wiring loom with 9 pins for player 2 and for 12 pins for player 1. I would probably make an adapter. I would probably take 2 of the 9-pin connectors, 2 of the 12-pin connectors. I'd wire one up for JAMMA with this being button 1, 2, 3, and I'd wire another one 3 with 3, 2, 1. And then on the other end, I would connect it to the control panel. Then if I was playing JAMMA, I would lift the control panel, I'd plug the cabinet harness into the end. That's 1, 2, 3. If I was going to play the Double Dragon PCB, I'd lift the control panel up, unplug the connectors, plug them into the alternate connector. That's JAMMA 3, 2, 1. So that I can play Double Dragon. So something you're going to have to deal with if you get one of these cabs and you plan on actually playing both Double Dragon and JAMMA boards, or if you just discover that issue, and wonder what the heck's going on. So the other issue I want to show, again, if you're going to be playing Double Dragon and other JAMMA games in one of these cabs, something else that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, that is the monitor size. Hopefully you can see it. I turn the lights off so the picture's better, and if there's any weird scrolling, that's the refresh rate of the camera. It's not a problem with the monitor. You can see that there's black to the left and right of the Double Dragon game. So the monitor ends here, but there's this big gap where there's no picture. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this image. It should be all the way to the edge, left and right. And you'd actually be wrong. I had to look that up too. And I can't remember the resolution, but it's the resolution of Double Dragon, where, for example, 256 by 240 would be almost square, whereas other JAMMA games might be 320 by 240, and so they're wider, a lot wider than they are tall. So the issue with Double Dragon is you have to have a monitor that you can adjust the width, so you can shrink the width for Double Dragon and then extend the width for JAMMA boards, because right now when I put a JAMMA board in here, it still is a little bit narrow, but not by much. So if I adjusted Double Dragon to be wider, and then you put another JAMMA board in, it would be off the screen. So since I've listed this weekend for sale as a Double Dragon, I didn't mess with that. Because it's running as a Double Dragon, and if somebody wants to put other JAMMA boards in it, that's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with. I didn't want to make it a working Double Dragon cabinet where the image filled the screen and then you put something else in and it would be off the screen. Also, this monitor is a G07 CBO, and I think it's CBO. Anyway, it's a G07, Electrohome G07. And the width coil, you have to put a tool in, a plastic tool, and turn it to make the width change. And because these cabinets were originally, it looks like, made for Wells Gardner K7000 monitors, it's a little bit of a hack to get the G07 in there. And it ends up where the chassis is in a position where it's really, I'm going to say not impossible, but extremely difficult to get a tool into the width coil and adjust it while the monitor is on so you can see what you're doing. Because you have to be, you're basically your hands on the tube with the tool way down in the width coil, because if you have a long tool to put in the width coil, it will hit the tube. So I'm not even sure if I have the right tool to adjust the coil, because the only way I can get enough clearance to put one in there far enough to make sure it's the right size and fits in the width coil would be to unscrew the chassis and pull it back to the point where I can get the tool in there at a straight shot instead of going in at an angle. So that's another thing to be aware of if you're a Double Dragon fan and want one of these cabs to play Double Dragon and other JAMMA games, is you're going to have width issues depending on the monitor that you have. Now, the other cabinet, the one I'm keeping, I'm actually going to put a Vision Pro monitor, and that is a tri-res monitor. And it's got a remote board that lets you adjust things like the horizontal size from a remote board, so you don't have to adjust it by pots on the back of the monitor or the horizontal width coil on the monitor. You can adjust it through a remote board. So I should not have this issue. Although, again, like I said, I don't really plan on keeping and playing a Double Dragon board. although I might. Um, I didn't look at Double Dragon 2. I'm not sure what its resolution is to see if that's the same way. Another issue I had, I put a JAMMA board in. I put my J-Rock Multi-Williams board in this, and I had to turn the flyback up to get a good picture. But then when I went back to the Double Dragon board, it was way too bright, and this area here wasn't black. It was gray because the flyback, I had to turn it up to get a good picture on the Multi-Williams board, and it was different for the Double Dragon board. It was too much. And I believe that has to do, my guess is, with the voltage of the video signal. There isn't really a strict standard for how much voltage to be output from a video arcade PCB as far as the signal strength, and I'm guessing that that's what the problem is Double Dragon puts out a much stronger video signal than, say, the J-Rock Multi-Williams. So to get the J-Rock to look good makes Double Dragon look too bright. And again, that's the flyback adjustment, which you have to get to on the back of the monitor. So this G07 in this cab, if you're going to use it for multi-JAMMA boards, different JAMMA boards, is not the best choice, because you have to take the glass off and then the two bolts holding the monitor in place, tilt the monitor down, and then get to the adjustments to adjust the monitor to make it work the best for the JAMMA board that you're playing. So something to be aware of if, again, you're one of the people who wants to get one of these cabs like I do, because you're short on space and it's easy to rotate the monitor to play horizontal or vertical JAMMA games. So all that being said, yes, I did get it up and running. And the other one is still dead because of the monitor. It plays games blind. It's just that K7000A monitor I cannot get to fire up. I just checked the shutdown voltage, and I'm getting less than half a volt on the shutdown voltage diode, and I should be getting somewhere around 9.8. So still not sure if it's a dead flyback in it or if it's some other problem. Again, I tested all the components that you normally test on a chassis: the hot, the voltage regulator, which I did replace in the cabin. It did not make a difference. I replaced the filter cap because it was bowed really bad. Didn't make a difference. I checked all the ceramic resistors. They were all good. I checked the main other large resistors. They were good. I checked the power diodes. They were good. The other diodes by the flyback are good. The width cap is good. The safety cap is good. Pretty much, yeah, I don't know what to do next. I could order a replacement pot for not the B plus adjust, but for the shutdown circuit adjust. Maybe that pot is dead, and that's why it's not getting any voltage through it. I don't know. But because it's going to get a Vision Pro in it, the only reason to get that monitor running would be as a spare. And again, I'd still have an issue, even though that monitor, the K7000A I have, does have a remote board. There are not that many adjustments on it. So I'd still be in the same pickle, I think, for several of the adjustments, where I'd have to actually lower the monitor board, mounting board on it, if I wanted to put a different game in that had a different refresh or a different resolution to get it to look its best. So that's where I am at that. I'm waiting for a chance to go pick up the Vision Pro so I can get that cabinet up and running, which is going to be a challenge also, just like this G07 that's in the other cabinet. This cabinet's designed, I believe, for the Wells Gardner K7000 in the way it mounts to that wooden board, because the G07 does not look this nice. It's a little bit off. To get the G07 a little bit better, I basically have to cut the wood here a bit so it could go up a bit, and also do some cuts on this area here to widen it right here, because there's a piece of metal that's kind of bumping into the wood there, so it's not, the wood panel's not pulling all the way flush. And again, that's not this cab, that's the other one that's up and running. So what I did was I just listed it on Craigslist this weekend as working double dragon cab in okay. I just said in okay condition because, you know, I think it's not bad. There's some peeling of the side art a little bit, but so far I've just got, you know, right after I listed it, I got that ubiquitous email, "Is this still available?" which I replied, "Yes it is. Let me know if you want to come take a look at it," and never heard back. So hopefully somebody will be interested in this that really likes Double Dragon. If not, the horizontal width, you're not going to be able to make it that big. The width coil is only going to move it a little, make it a little wider, so you'd have to change the width cap to get that bigger if you're only going to run other JAMMA games and not Double Dragon. And I think Moon Patrol is another one I've heard that's fairly square resolution. So there we go. One of the two Double Dragons up and running. The other one just has a bad monitor that I'm going to replace anyway. But if I could have got it running, I might have been able to give it to one of my friends to replace a monitor in the Time Pilot that he's got, that's got a pretty worn out, burned monitor. So that's it for this video. Somebody's calling me on the phone, so I'll call it there.